All right. So, Matt, take us back to January 2024.
In January, I was, I was pretty frustrated. I was running a cold email lead generation agency that I hated, and I was showing in the results I was getting. I was having trouble really getting it off the ground, having trouble attracting the kind of clients that I wanted to work with, had trouble with the client relationships once I had them. So that whole thing was pretty much misery. And then in my personal life, I felt very stagnant in a lot of ways and felt trapped in the situation that I was in. Didn't really like the business I was doing. Didn't feel like I had the money or the options to do something else. Was starting to get frustrated with Tampa, where I've been living for the last few years, and didn't feel like I had the ability to get out of that. Um, it's just kind of a mess, man. I was just really frustrated.
In our first couple of conversations, what came up where you were like, yeah, we need to work together?
We dove in heavy into some stuff. You asked me more about my goals than I thought about them in a long time as well. Really pushed me to get specific, measurable, and ambitious with some of the goals that I was laying out. If you'd asked me before we started working together, I would have told you I had goals and probably would have been able to mumble some of them off, like kind of, but there was nowhere near the level of clarity or conviction or anything like that I needed. That was the first thing that stood out to me. Like on the first call, you really just dove into goals for myself that like excited me. It started getting the gears turning in my head and really thinking about what was actually possible for me in a way that maybe I hadn't even dared to think about before.
Why had you not been thinking about those goals before? Because bro, look at you. Everything about you. You're an ambitious savage.
You know, like I can see that about myself, but I mean, I guess the easy answer is just fear of some sort, right? Like it was definitely fear. You know, if you call the play, then you have to run the play, right? And if you run the play, there's the chance that you don't make it. If you never call the play, then that never happens. So you could just continue floating on in your world of unaccountability, and pretending everything's okay, but it wasn't, right?
So what was it like then getting into a container where you had to stay connected to what's possible and not only call the play, but then run the play?
You know, it was kind of scary, right? Once I start saying it, and not just saying it, but then thinking about part of the exercises were like, what are the things that you need to do in order to get there? What are the incremental steps along the way? What do you need to make non-negotiable? And once you start defining all that stuff, you got to do it or let yourself down. If you never define those things, then obviously you'll let yourself down in the long run, but you avoid that kind of acute pain of, defining what needs to be done and not doing it. So it felt good. It was freeing and exciting, but also, yeah, kind of scary. And sometimes I didn't want to do it. I mean, I think there were a few times where I told you to fuck off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And then what happens?
push through. And a lot of progress that I've made is gradually becoming more comfortable with discomfort, right? So something is uncomfortable and you push through it and realize it's not the end of the world. And, you kind of build that habit. Um, and gradually that becomes who you are. And you push through discomfort, do it every day at the gym now. And I had that brewing in me for a while, but I probably avoided a lot of discomfort in my personal life or self-examination.
So can you share a little bit about what's on the other side of now building that habit and integrating all of that in who you are? Because you were already doing it in the gym. And then what happened once you started connecting those dots outside of the gym?
It's still a work in progress, very much so, but I see things starting to happen. And uh, maybe more important than any of the stuff that's started to happen, right? The external effects, the business, money, whatever. More significant, I think, is just the feeling of being fundamentally okay, even when things are difficult or uncertain. But if I could point to one of the biggest differences between now and January, I just feel a lot more, I don't know if you could say like fundamentally secure or something. Like I felt very much in panic mode in January. That was very much what drew me to look for coaching. It was just constant visceral scared, scarce feeling, and now I definitely feel that a lot less.
What results have occurred for you on the other side of that?
Over this last year, even though I would say fitness was probably one of the areas where I was already doing relatively better than some of the other areas of my life, it's definitely improved over the last year. I've just become a ruthless, consistent machine. I do not have any doubt in the world that I'm going to be at the gym when I say I'm going to be there, and then I'm going to do the things that I said I was going to do. The sets are written down, the sets get done. And it's actually kind of remarkable how consistent that's become in business. So I went from having basically failing cold email lead gen agency that wasn't really making any money. It's probably losing money all told, to now hit a 46K month in business with my business partner a few months ago. We landed a big partnership, which has brought in a lot of business for us. That's probably going to continue to grow. Our goal for 2025 is to push it to 100. And I think there's a very reasonable chance that we can get there. I finally feel like I'm in a position to get out of Tampa, which, to all the Tampa people out there, Tampa's a great city. I do enjoy it. I like it. But it doesn't scratch the itch that I have. I really feel like I need to get back to New York. And I felt that way for a little while, but I didn't really feel like I could do it. And now I'm planning to move.
Dude, that's
Brooklyn,
amazing.
baby.
Brooklyn, it's the best. So, damn, dude, you're a beast. What would you describe the process of working with me like?
You ask tough questions. You're not afraid to poke and prod, even where it's going to be uncomfortable, even if you know it's going to elicit some kind of reaction, which it often did for me. And yeah, you would challenge me on stuff. I'd say something, and if it wasn't specific enough or didn't really make sense, you'd tell me like, dude, what does that even mean? Damn it, Michael. Okay. And to go back and dig deeper to figure out what it is I was actually trying to say, and that was very helpful. I think if you are not being pushed by somebody to be as clear as you can be, then you can allow yourself to like elide over all these details. You're not actually answering the question. You don't actually have clarity on what you're trying to do or why. And you end up in a place where, you are essentially lying to yourself. There's no like substance underneath the kind of the things that you like say you want, the goals that you say you have. Yeah, left to my own devices, because again, it's uncomfortable to go digging for what that actually means, what the feeling actually is, what you actually want. And so since it's uncomfortable and it's kind of hard, if you're left to your own devices, there's a decent chance that you just don't do it. Having somebody to push you and call you out when you're not getting all the way there, not fully digging deep is very helpful.
What was the most challenging shift that you made this year?
I guess one of the reasons why I'm hesitant to say this is because I don't feel like I'm fully embodying it yet. But like I was saying about being, ruthlessly consistent at the gym, that has become my default character. With work, I would say I definitely show up much more consistently than I did. One of the clear manifestations of that is like just when I get up in the morning, right? So like a year ago, I was having trouble getting up at a consistent time. Aiming for like 5, wouldn't really do it. Sometimes I would sleep until 7 and kind of have this period of time where, I'm kind of up, but I don't really feel like getting up. So I'm hiding under the covers. I'm putting on a podcast. I'm doing whatever I have to do to avoid the day. Now I just get out of bed at 4:30 and I just get doing what needs to be done. I get right to work and then I go to the gym at 7:15 and it's like clockwork. I know I am going to be there. After a while, it just becomes the way that you operate. That's probably been the biggest shift, just the ruthless consistency that I'm trying to expand more.
Who would benefit the most from working with me, and what do they need to know about getting a big return on their investment like you've gotten?
So I would say that somebody who would benefit from working with you knows that they could do more, and they probably have some like nagging voices, or just like a feeling in there. They know they can do more, but they know they're not doing it. And maybe they're not entirely sure why, or they're frustrated. What they need to know about working with you is that you're not going to bullshit or baby them. You're going to tell them stuff that they probably aren't going to want to hear. You're going to push them to really get specific and dig deep for the answers to your questions. And they're not always going to like it, and they're not going to like everything that you say, but that's where the growth is, right? If somebody's just yesing you to death, or, just giving you lots of little pats on the head, like that's nice. You might feel good, but you're not going to grow from that. Things that you're going to grow from are being prodded in places where you're sore, or, being called out on your bullshit, right? Like, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. But you can find all these ways to fool yourself, excuse it or whatever. And if you have somebody else just like nakedly saying, no, you are failing yourself, you are letting yourself down, and here's how, that sucks. You're going to fight it probably, but that's what's actually helpful. Yeah.
What did you fight, and what vices are you free of now?
This is tougher than it should be. There's some like obvious answers I could throw out, right? Like fighting complacency or comfort. Everybody is, I think. I've been at war with myself in a lot of ways. I think that I've had a tendency to make myself smaller in a lot of ways because I am afraid of being bigger or appearing too strong. As far as, I mean, vices, well, so even just in the last year, actually, I was just thinking about this the other day. When we started talking earlier this year, I was having trouble actually with like junk food. I would, do heavy workouts and then afterwards kind of binge on ice cream and chips, things like that. And I didn't like it. You could maybe say that, heavy workouts, refueling, it's fine. But I didn't like it. I would always feel really regretful afterwards. Now I'm like actually really very consistent with my diet. I rarely eat anything outside of what I know I should be eating. And that's something that's just happened over the last year. I realized the other day that I like really don't have problems with that anymore. I went a whole month without watching porn, but and like I said, it actually wasn't really a thing. So I should probably do that again. Yeah.
Yeah, make it forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're speaking to Matt of January.
Yeah.
What would wake his ass up?
We're speaking to Matt from January. I mean, I guess the biggest thing I would say is like, dude, it's actually possible. Like, because I think Matt in January might not have believed that. I guess one of the reasons I'm hemming and hawing here is because I still like, I feel it. How do I say this?
You're afraid you might fuck it up?
I am, and I'm afraid I might fuck it up, or and I'm also just like, still I can only really see like what's ahead. Like, I almost have like this like internal resistance to saying like, oh, look at these things I accomplished, they're so great. But like real talk, Matt in January probably wouldn't have thought that the stuff that actually happened this year would have been possible, especially the business and being in a position to like move back to New York. I think those are two things that Matt from January probably had a lot of trouble actually seeing, seeing in front of him and in that time frame. So if I could go back and tell Matt from January that those things actually were possible and closer at hand than he thought then, I probably would have gone even further by now, right? Like if Matt from January knew that, he probably would have gone harder this year. And the goals that I did accomplish would, I could have doubled them. Who knows? So that's what I would tell him. And that's probably something that Matt from December 2024 needs to internalize too, frankly.
You think?
Yeah, probably.
And maybe that's why we got on this call.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Dude, you're the fucking man. Hold on, I'm gonna stop this. Bro, you're beautiful.
I appreciate you, man.